Welcome to the Cambridge Financial Podcast with Bert Salazar, CEO at Cambridge Financial Partners, LLC. This podcast is all about tax-preferred retirement planning, economics, financial risk management, and achieving a risk-free and successful financial life. Now, your host, Bert Salazar. Bert Salazar. Bert Salazar.
Hey, good day, everyone. Welcome once again to your Tax-Free Life Retirement Podcast. And as you know, I'm excited to be here with you every single week. And this is episode 114. The name of this episode today is Never Let What Could Have Been Become What It Never Was. Never let what could have been become what it never was. And one of the interesting things that is happening to me that I see on an ongoing basis is that because of the fact that as a retirement strategist and a tax planner, I primarily work with clients that are either very close to retirement or at retirement. What I've been noticing is a tremendous discrepancy between what clients thought about retirement, what they wanted to do in retirement, and the way that they're living retirement. So I want to talk a little bit today about the psychology of retirement. I also want to talk a little bit about your retirement finances will determine your retirement life. And then last but not least, how to buy financial freedom today and for many years to come. So going back to the psychology of retirement, one of the things that I notice is that most individuals and families that are now retiring, they're pretty much maintaining the status quo. They really haven't made that paradigm shift of going from people at work to money at work. So they're still making the same decisions in retirement that they were doing prior to retirement. And they fail to understand that the rules of engagement have totally changed. So therefore, they're going to have to redo their way of thinking when it comes to, managing themselves and their families and their assets in retirement. Many of these families, sadly enough, they're pretty much tripping over pennies in order to get to dollars. So the rules of scarcity and from an economic perspective is actually running rampant when it comes to the way that these Americans are managing their dollars. Living your retirement life based on a scarcity mentality is something that is not really good, because at the end of the day, if every financial decision you're gonna make daily will be based from a scarcity standpoint, then that means that you're not going to be able to enjoy your retirement life the way that you should be enjoying your retirement life. Obviously, many of the clients that I'm engaging for the first time, and in 2020, although we've had COVID-19 and we've had a lot of challenges, I'm getting more and more clients and many more phone calls than I've done in previous years, because people are afraid, they're concerned, they're traumatized as to what may be happening to them in retirement and so forth. And what I do often find is that, these people are pretty much marking time or marching in place and going nowhere from a personal and or a retirement perspective. One of the questions that I think is going to be important for all of us, and that I've talked about in the past and before, is where are you going to live in retirement and how you're going to live in retirement. Also, if you happen to be married or if you have a significant other in your life, are there any spousal commonalities in retirement? Do you both think the same way? Do you both want to retire in the same place? Do you both want to do the same things? It would be challenging for you as a family if you're in retirement that, the husband wants to do one thing and then the wife wants to do something else, or the spouses or the partners in life may want to do something different. I have seen cases in which the husband wants to continue to work, but the wife doesn't want anything to do with that. She wants to completely retire and travel the U.S. or move abroad and so forth. So if you haven't had these discussions and conversations, with someone that you know, like, and trust, and you love, and he or she is with you and has been with you for many, many years, then you're going to have some challenges in retirement that you're going to have to deal with. One of the main questions that I ask all of my clients when they first come to see me is, how old would you be today if you didn't know how old you were? And what that does is it brings to the forefront how it is that these people perceive themselves and perceive their lives when it comes to retirement. And the reason why I ask this question is that I have a number of 80-year-olds that act and feel like if they were 60. On the other hand, I have a bunch of 60-year-olds that act and feel like if they were 80, 85, and they're just sitting around waiting to die. So how it is that you manage your life. Now, you also, if you're in a relationship, or if you're married, or you have a significant other, do they both feel the same way about their age and what they want to do in retirement? Because if you're a 65-year-old and you're 65 years of age, and you think and you're acting like you're 45, and your spouse or significant other is same age as yours, but he or she feels like they're already in their mid-70s, then your retirement life is going to be totally different, because you're not going to be able to enjoy the same things. You're not going to be moving at the same speed, and therefore you're going to have some major challenges to deal with. So let's kind of talk a little bit about your retirement finances determine your retirement life. And again, the reason why I decided to name this podcast, Never Let What Could Have Been Become What It Never Was, is that I see it way too often. And that's one of the things that I never want to do for myself or my family. I don't want to be laying on my deathbed wishing that, I would have done something else with my life, or, I wish I would have traveled more. I wish I would have gone to Europe. I talked to one of my clients the other day. He's already 82, and now he's not doing well from a health standpoint. And he had never been to Europe. And he said, Bert, I wish I would have, set some time aside. And they had the money to be able to do it. But, life gets in the way. They were taking care of grandchildren. I know my wife tells me all the time that, she wants to be a grandmother. She doesn't want to be a babysitter. And these clients of mine, for the last 15 years, they've been babysitting for their grandchildren. So all of a sudden, they get to a point in their lives that they're in the slow-go years and fast approaching the no-go years, and they have all kinds of things that they wish they would have done in the past, but it never was, because they never got around to do it, and now it's pretty much too late for that. So when I say that your retirement finances determine your retirement life, questions like, how much have you saved for retirement? Most Americans don't save enough. Are you a saver? Are you a spender? How are your retirement assets positioned? In other words, are they guaranteed? Are they not guaranteed? Are they susceptible to stock market volatility? To what level are they susceptible? Do you know what next month's income is going to look like? Because unless you have guaranteed paychecks in life, you really don't know what next month's income is going to look like, because if the market drops 10, 15, 20%, then you may be forced to either take less and try to reduce your standard of living, and that may not be a good thing for you, or take the same amount and run out of money before you run out of life, which more than likely that's going to happen to most of you on this call today, and most of you that are listening to my podcast. A big question along those lines is, at what age will you run out of income? And those are questions that are very, very important. And this one is a critical one, because for most Americans, you're going to more than likely run out of money before you run out of life. Now, wouldn't you want to know what year that's going to be? And wouldn't you want to know if there are ways that you can avoid that Armageddon that is going to be hitting your retirement accounts at some point in time in the future? Have you pulled the trigger on Social Security benefits? And if you have, then what formula did you use to make that determination? And then why did you do it? There are many reasons why you want to take Social Security benefits, either at 62 or 66 or age 70, depending on the year that you were born. But most of the clients that I engage for the first time have never dealt or addressed any of those issues and or concerns with their previous advisors. And that's why, if you're dealing with somebody who's a retirement strategist, he or she is going to think from a totally different perspective than if you're just dealing with a traditional financial advisor. Will you experience a long-term care illness in retirement? And if that is the case, how will you and your family cope? Who will provide the care? Many a times, it would be the significant other that will be providing the care. So if you're the husband and you're the one that has a long-term care issue and an illness, then your spouse and or significant other they're going to have to put their lives on hold in order to take care of you. How do you feel about that? And is there something that you can do in order to avoid that potential liability? How will you, who will provide the care? So obviously that would be, your immediate family. How will you pay for it? And if you have to pay for it out of pocket, what impact is that going to have on your retirement life? Does that mean that you're going to have to invade principal and interest in your retirement accounts a lot quicker and at a larger distribution rate in order to cover the additional cost of long-term care? And then what happens? What will happen to your family once you're gone? Did you take all the money with you? Because you had to pay for those long-term care expenses. What is left for your surviving spouse or significant other? Well, are they going to have to go back to work when they're in their mid-80s? Are they going to become a Walmart greeter at that point in time? See, if you really haven't addressed any of these questions and you haven't talked about these issues with your spouse and or significant other, then you're being extremely selfish because you're hoping for the best, but hoping is not a financial strategy. So the last point that I want to talk about is, well, if all of these things are very critical and understanding the psychology of retiring and retirement and how is that going to be impacting you, if understanding that your retirement finances are going to determine your retirement life and the quality of your retirement life, then wouldn't it make sense for you to start thinking about how to buy financial freedom today? And the sooner that you can buy financial freedom, the better off your life is going to be, not only for you, but also for your family, regardless of what may be happening down the line. Because if you live long enough, a lot of things are going to happen to you. So one of the first conversations that you need to have with your spouse or significant other is, you want to discuss where to live long term in retirement and why. Do you want to stay in the city that you currently live in or that you lived in prior to retirement? Do you want to move to another city? Do you want to move to another state? Do you want to move to another country? And why do you want to do that? Is it peace of mind? Is it financial peace of mind? Is it just goals and objectives and desires that may be giving you the opportunity to live somewhere else in retirement? You need to have an answer for those questions. You obviously need to get the buy-in from all interested parties. So in this case, it should be your immediate family. You're probably going to have to reposition your retirement assets for success. And how do you do that? Well, number one, you want to make certain that your retirement income becomes a retirement paycheck. And the only way that your income is going to become a retirement paycheck if it is totally guaranteed. So unless you have a guaranteed paycheck coming in every single month and you know exactly what that paycheck is going to look like, then you really don't have a retirement plan. And now you've heard me talk about this 1,000 times. But the more I talk about it, the more I need to, because every single week I'm engaging 2 to 3 new clients that they haven't gone through this exercise. And when we start to actually go deep into all the things that could go wrong at any point in time in the future, all of their plans just fall apart. And it's sad that it's happening, but the bottom line is that you got to be able to make a decision. You have to be able to adapt, to adjust and to improvise all your financial decisions moving forward. How many years do you have left? I did a podcast a week ago talking about, how much of a rope do you have in life? Are you at the end of the rope? Well, do you have just go-go years left? Do you have go-go years and slow-go years left? Or do you have all three? Do you have the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years in life, meaning that you may live, as long as 3 decades in retirement? You could be in your go-go years, and all of a sudden you have a long-term care need, or you have cancer, you have a stroke, and all of a sudden you go from go-go years to no-go years because your life is pretty much over at that point in time. So how are you going to be able to cope with all of those things? Obviously, making certain that your retirement assets are guaranteed so they don't suffer the volatility of a stock market and or interest rates. Those volatilities can actually destroy a retirement plan. And obviously the sequencing of returns and the withdrawal rate risk. Are you taking too much and risking running out of money before you run out of life? Or are you taking too little because of your scarcity fears, and then you're not really enjoying life? You're just marking time and waiting to die. How it is that you want to, believe me, it's all your choices, nobody else's choices. It's not even my choice, because all I do is I try to save you from yourself. So I want to open your eyes to the opportunities and the possibilities of retirement. But most Americans have never done their due diligence in preparing for retirement. Do you have potential retirement income or guaranteed paychecks? We already talked a little bit about that. Make certain that your retirement paychecks are guaranteed, because otherwise, like I said, you don't have a retirement life. What about the fatal 4? What happens to your retirement life if you start to add economic pressures? So whenever clients come to see me for the first time, I do a tactical retirement blueprint. And basically what it means is I start to put pressures on the fatal 4 of retirement. The risk of dying too soon and having a premature death. The risk of living too long and running out of money before you run out of life. The risk of living with a disability, like any type of long-term care illnesses, and that now makes you disabled. And then last but not least, the risk of living with eroding factors, like taxes, inflation, stock market volatility, interest rate volatility, propensity to consume, lawsuits. So whenever I engage a client for the first time, I take all of their assets, I put them into a model, into a financial model, and then we start to apply pressures on each and every one of those assets based on the fatal 4. And what is really sad is that when we start to apply pressure, economic pressure, that entire plan that they had been building for 30 years, 40 years for some, falls apart overnight. Now, how sad is that? After working all of your life and hoping that now you're going to be in retirement and have a successful retirement life, and everything falls apart for you. So the bottom line is that retirement is not only about assets, it's not only about having guaranteed paychecks, although that's very important. It's not only about the fatal 4, but it's also about the psychology of retirement and how it is that you want to live your retirement life. Because nothing is ever going to happen the way that you planned it, because life happens. But unless you've had that conversation, it's going to be a very difficult one if you reach retirement. I have probably 5 or 6 clients where there's at least a 10-year age disparity between the husband and the wife. I have 2 clients where the disparity is 17 years. So that tells you a different world. That's going to be a totally different world. Can you imagine if you have a 15-year disparity with your spouse? So you are 65 and your spouse is now 80 years of age. You guys may live in the same household, but you both live in a totally, totally different world. And the older you get, the higher the disparity becomes. even if it's only a 5-year disparity. Because things in your health changes so rapidly in periods of 5 years that if you have 5, 10, 15, even 20 years disparity in ages, your world and your retirement life is going to be totally different. And most of you are going to be questioning yourselves, and you're going to be questioning your retirement life. So again, I'm not trying to scare any of you about not retiring, because all of us want to retire. What I'm trying to bring to the forefront are the things that you need to consider and the decisions that you're going to have to make in order to enjoy the most successful retirement life possible, and by the same token, to make certain that nothing is going to catch you by surprise, because you have protected yourself and you have protected your family from the fatal 4 of dying too soon, living too long, living with a disability, or living with eroding factors. Remember, for those of you wishing to engage me, to pick my brain on any of these things, feel free to call me at area code 786-766-1042. You can also send me an email at Bert, B-E-R-T, at bertsalazar.com, BERTSALAZAR.com. And always remember that my goal for you and for your family is to kind of help you change the way that you see things, because when you change the way that you see things, the things that you see change. Once again, thanks for your time today, and I'll talk to you again next week. Take care. Bye-bye.